Jesus has to be, by far, one of the most popular figures throughout history, but we have very little details about his life. Unbeknownst to most people, those missing years of his life, we do have a little bit of details about those. And upon popular request, I'm going to dive into those details. So we pretty much know the story about baby Jesus swaddled in a manger, the Magi coming to visit him, bringing him gifts. So I'm not going to cover a lot of the basic knowledge that many of us may have about Jesus. I'm going to cover the missing years. The sequence of events would have happened after Jesus was born in the manger. The Magi, which are also known to be medicine men, astrologers, workers of alchemy, brought him 3 gifts referencing alchemy. They also have magical properties as well, and you can find that out in the blog post. But they brought him those 3 gifts. After that, his mother was to return back to Jerusalem to be purified, the ritual purification. They returned back to Bethlehem. There, they stayed until Joseph had a dream. Take the royal family to Egypt. Around about this time, he could have been maybe around 2 years old. It's up for speculation. They go to Egypt. They also do a census there. Jesus stayed for about 3.5 years. This is his first initiation in the training of the mystery schools, ones that had the same knowledge that the Magi's, the mystics, the teachers, the philosophers of Egypt, as Moses had. The same instance happened with him. The Pharaoh was looking for this chosen one, a baby boy. It was a census, and then there was an execution of baby boys. That's where Moses ended up in the Pharaoh's house. For the next X many years, he received the training of the royal family, according to the Pharaoh's best and most knowledgeable philosophers and magicians, medicine people, etc. This same thing happened in the New Testament with Jesus. It is thought that he received the teachings of Thoth. There are a lot of similarities between Jesus' teaching as well as Thoth's teaching. This is Jesus' first day in Egypt. From here, they returned back to their homeland. Jesus learned to be a carpenter and possibly even a fisher of men or a fisherman. There's also another book called the Gospel of Thomas. It details a bit of the childhood of Jesus. At first, I was thrown off and off-put by this depiction of Jesus. But however, if you think about the divinity and you think about a person that is human and fully divine, and they're trying to find a healthy balance between their divinity and their humanity, that a lot of these stories could make sense, or a person that is practicing their magic and working with their abilities. In ancient cultures, these both would be under the category of thaumaturgy, meaning wonder worker. Wonder working can be under the classification of miracle worker, also depicted as a magical practice, a practitioner, someone that works magic, that uses incantations and spells and sigils, etc., to manifest a specific outcome. In the Gospels, we can see around the age of 12 to 13, Jesus and his family returned to Jerusalem for the annual Passover. This would be known as a 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗀, a celebration of manhood. Some way, somehow, his parents leave to go back home without the young Jesus. They return about 3 days later, and they find him in the temple, asking questions, answering questions with some of the greatest minds of that time in that culture, in the synagogue. The priests and the teachers and the rabbis were all amazed at his wisdom. This is pretty much the last time that we hear about Jesus until he's baptized and he goes to the desert. But in another book called The Gospel of the Holy 12, we have more details about the young adult life of Jesus. First, he returns to Egypt for a second time, and he enhances his abilities and his knowledge and wisdom in Egypt. He moves on to India, where he learns meditation practices and how to move energy throughout his body, and heads to Tibet with the Tibetan monks, where he learns how to do Reiki and other forms of what people will call magical or mystical practices. Then Jesus shows back up on the scene in the Bible at the age of 30. The age 30 is related to priesthood. We see that Jesus goes on a isolation phase, on a purification phase, before he embarks on his ministry, which will put him in the priestly realms. When we study a lot of the history surrounding Christ and other figures that were popular of his time, that we can see that there's 2 divisions. You have the Gospels that explain that Jesus's wonder workings was because of his divinity, while you have the same wonder workings being argued that these were magical practices with other papyries that can support these claims. Does this take away his divinity? Well, if we are to be Christ-like, knowing that we have God that resides within us and that we are fully human and fully God in the incarnated flesh, that we should be able to do these things. Many of us are not owning our power. Is it because we're not practicing how Jesus practiced? We're not learning about these different techniques and tools that we have at our fingertips to indeed work miracles. Does this mean that we can do the same exact things? Actually, there is a scripture that says that we can do these things and even greater. So if we believe that this is true, as far as Jesus going through all these different initiations and learning all these different techniques and using these different tools, when we look at the scriptures and we see these as miracles, do we believe that we can do the same things and even greater? Do these findings discredit miracles and miracle working? Or do you think that they go hand in hand?